What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. I've been waiting around a lot of Tuesday because there was a report about Brandon Ayuk, and I just said, I'm not going to wait any longer because at the pace in which this has gone before, why would I expect anything more to change? If something does happen, a trade to the Steelers, a contract extension with the 49ers, I will do a separate video on my thoughts on whatever, however that plays out. But as of right now, who knows? And based on the way this is going, I think it would be foolish to think that I should wait any longer because there's a chance that this keeps playing out for days ahead. But if something does break, we will react. But something did happen today. J.J. McCarthy needs knee surgery, and it has opened up an opportunity for a young player that I would say a couple years ago, you didn't think this opportunity was going to be there any longer. The Cleveland Browns have a problem on their hands and just some other NFL stories. But before we dive into football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. And listen, we're in inflationary times. Everywhere you go, we all feel it. Things are more expensive. So anytime you can save a little money, you got to take advantage of it. You got to jump on it. It's expensive to go to football games. It's expensive to go to concerts. Never been to a comedy show, but imagine those aren't cheap, depending on who you're going to see. So when you go to Game Time and you save $20 to go to any event, go enjoy yourself. Go to a concert on a Saturday or Sunday. Have a few cocktails. Smile. Sing with your wife. Sing with your girlfriend. Take your daughter or son. Go to a football game this fall with some buddies. I got you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN, JOHN, for $20. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny with opportunities. Sports, a lot like life, they can come and they go. And sometimes certain people get more than others for whatever reason, for whatever circumstance. And some guys get an opportunity, fail, and never get that shot again. When you look, and we've talked a lot about the 2021 quarterback class, Trey Lance is never getting a chance to be a starting quarterback ever again. I would say the same thing about Zach Wilson. It's never happening. It doesn't mean they can't become one with injuries, work their way up a depth chart. They will never be named the starter as of right now. Justin Fields gets traded to a team with another quarterback that someone just paid $80+ million of dead cap to kick away. Can't beat the guy out. Mac Jones, very difficult for him to become a starter again. These guys have been in the league just a couple years, already flipped like that. Yet Sam Darnold, who looked like his career was down the drain, got a lifeline. And it actually didn't start this year. It started last year with Kyle Shanahan. And I do think that belief in a coach who's viewed as one of the best offensive coaches in the league changed the perception about him. Goes there. He just told Albert Breer. Because let's face it, early on in his career, it was kind of embarrassing. But we talked about this yesterday when it comes to the Jets situation. Most people can't overcome chaos. Most people can't overcome dysfunction. Most people can't overcome awful coaching. And that's what Adam Gase was. That's what Matt Rule was as an NFL coach. Yet he goes to Kyle Shanahan. He's their backup. And they all really liked him. They felt comfortable if they had to start him in a game. And at one point in time last season, after Purdy got a concussion, thought Sam Darnold was going to start. Turned out Purdy cleared, ended up starting, and Sam just basically started the last game that they punted against the Rams with a bunch of backups. But then Kevin O'Connell came calling. Said, I want to give you $10 million. We're going to draft a quarterback, more than likely. We got a couple first-round picks, but you're going to be our starter. He said that in OTAs. He said that in the start of training camp. And he hasn't relinquished that, even after J.J. McCarthy looked good. Then it turns out a couple days later, J.J. McCarthy needs knee surgery. Now, as of right now, torn meniscus. From what I read, you don't know how long you're out until they do surgery. Could be a month, could be the season. Sucks. If you're a Vikings fan, that is not what you want to read. Glass half empty. If he misses the whole season, you get all those reps. Patrick Mahomes, a big part of his success, even though he redshirted, was all the reps in practice, constantly getting better, getting used to Andy Reid, starting the last game, building that momentum into year 2. That would be off the table, obviously, if he's out for the year. Best case scenario, post-surgery, misses the rest of training camp, maybe a couple weeks in the regular season, can come back, run scout team, everything's fine. But the bright side is, this is not the Bears. This is not Washington. You didn't name your rookie the starter. You weren't planning on starting him or even playing him. In a perfect world, he wouldn't play all season long. And he signed Sam Darnold. And now he has an enormous opportunity around a young offensive coach that many believe is a rocket ship, with the best wide receiver in the league, with another guy who's probably going to get suspended because of a bad DUI, but when he does come back after 2 or 3 games, is one of the better young wide receivers, it looks like, in the league. And Addison, they signed Aaron Jones. Last time I checked, he's a stud. They have a superstar offensive tackle that they just gave a lot of money to. And it's an incredible opportunity. And if you're lucky enough to screw something up, even if it's not all your fault, and get handed another opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. And luckily for Sam Darnold, he's not playing for a huge contract for the Vikings. They're going to go to J.J. McCarthy unless they have to amputate his leg. Like, J.J. McCarthy's going to be the Viking starter in 2025. But he's playing for a lot of other teams that have a lot of question marks at quarterback. Some do not have a quarterback. And if you can be a 26-year-old who can be successful with Kevin O'Connell, who has Kyle Shanahan on your resume as a reference, someone's going to pay you. Someone's going to give you some money. And you can go from a laughingstock in this league, especially when you're a highly drafted player, to someone people covet pretty quick. We just saw with Baker Mayfield. No one would touch him. Then he goes to Tampa, resurrect his career, gets $100 million. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I wouldn't bet my life savings on it. But I do know the right people believe in this guy and think there's something there. Now it's on Sam to prove it. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. Get on all the UFC 305 action live from the land down under at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. The middleweight title's on the line for the main event, but the card is stacked full of rip snorter blokes and shellas. And speaking of stacked, if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers get $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. UFC 305. It's going to be a ripper of a good time. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. You know, it's funny with the Browns. They have this Ivy League leadership. Their GM, super smart guy, went to Harvard, played at Harvard. Their head coach, super smart guy. Both these guys looked the part. One looks like a GM, one looks like a head coach, both skinny, in shape. Went to Penn. Just a couple Ivy League elites running their operation. Yet I was texting with someone today after I saw the headline that their second-round defensive tackle from Ohio State, Mike Hall Jr., was arrested for, quote-unquote, allegedly dragging his baby mama. Maybe she's pregnant with a child. She's baby mama. I didn't write that down. Around the driveway in front of the house and putting a gun to her face, basically saying to her, "I will end it all." Cops arrested him. Again, all allegedly. Who knows? Might be a fact, might not be. I don't know. Not the point. Because obviously if that happened, complete scumbag, I mean, you got to cut him. I mean, end of story, point blank. There's nothing else to say. But here's the thing. For this group of Ivy League guys, as someone in the NFL put it, they sure do draft and sign a lot of questionable character guys. I said, wait, what was this guy's deal? And I asked around a couple college directors, and they said he was off several boards around the league. We would have drafted him, but he was a massive red flag on our board. He was a no doubt about it first round talent. I won't put the Deshaun Watson thing all on those guys because clearly the owner had to sign off on the contract. But it's hard to argue when you sign a guy with that much baggage. I question what you're doing. This one is one of those, and I think sometimes the analytical elite, because Daryl Morey's a huge believer in this, and he's like the founding father of the group, character can be like kind of an afterthought. Not as important. Traits, talent, ability. And that's true like in baseball. But in football, you practice way more than you play. You have a ton of downtime. And to draft a guy who was a major, major red flag for anyone you ask in the NFL, and have him not even get halfway through training camp before the cops coming and putting handcuffs on him is not a great start. And I think the Browns, they've done a good job. Stefanski's a good coach. A lot of people push back when I didn't have him in my top 10 list. I easily could have. Honestly, kind of forgot about him. And that's on me. Their GM, clearly pretty good. But they overlook character a lot. And this is pretty glaring. This is a guy that everyone in the league had questions about, and they picked him. And he couldn't even make it to the second preseason game without a major situation coming up. And here's the problem. They haven't had many draft picks over the years. So what do? Lean talent more than character because we need the guy. We don't have a lot of high-end cheap talent because we traded it for Deshaun Watson. So maybe we overlook it a little bit. And then it bites us immediately in the ass. Assuming this is true. Even if only a portion of it is true. He put himself in a position where the cops came over to his house and he found his way behind bars. That can't happen. It simply cannot. But when you draft red flags, you put yourself at a much higher risk for these situations to happen. And like I said, these two Ivy League guys who are really impressive whenever they talk, very talented at their jobs, feels like get a little bit of a pass. I know one thing I hear all the time is Andy Reid, he just takes flyers on characters. I don't know. Seems like a lot of people do. And some people, because they're more liked by the media, kind of get a pass. Andy sure has a long history of kicking everyone's ass. These guys got worked in a playoff game 6 months ago. Granted, it was with their backup quarterback. Let's face it. We would like this team a lot if we believed more in their quarterback. But part of the reason we don't believe in the quarterback, not just because his play has fallen off a cliff, we don't trust the guy. I don't know, man. I don't know how to get around it. When you have top 50 or second round picks, I think he was the 54th pick maybe, but so he wasn't a top 50 pick, but he was definitely a top 50 player on their board. And he can't make it to the second preseason game without having an incident of allegedly putting a gun to someone's face. I can't take you that seriously. I really can't. So simply put, this isn't good. I mean, no way around it. A couple other NFL stories. Jared Goff had a really good comment. I was reading an article. Albert Breer does a really good job, goes to all these training camps and talks to these guys. And, people think I'm too harsh. I guess people think I hate Sirianni. None of this is personal. Whenever people have gotten mad at me in the league, I'm like, this is job. Like, I don't think you're that good at your job. I'm not saying you're a bad dad. I'm not saying you're a bad person unless I hear you are or know you and know that you're a bad person. Then I think you're a scumbag. Like, I'm sorry. That's on you, not me. But like, if I don't think you're a good coach, I don't know if Brandon Staley's a good guy or not. Don't know him. I just thought he was a phony and a terrible coach. Sirianni, who's had way more success than Brandon Staley, I will say this. I do believe Brandon Staley knows scheme, knows how to coach the defensive side of the ball. Like, especially on a whiteboard, I don't feel that confident with Sirianni. But there are other coaches in the league that do exactly what Sirianni does. Leadership, lead the squad, do not call any part of the ball. And they're very, very good at it. The Harbaugh brothers, elite. Tomlin, say what you want about him. He's a leader of men. And I would put Dan Campbell immediately in that category. And as Jared Goff said, he's never been around a guy who has a better emotional IQ for when to push and when to pull back. He's like, his ability to just know when to go pedal to the metal and to know when to hit the brakes is something pretty uncanny. And when you have a guy in a position of just leadership, that's all they're doing. They're not dictating the play calls. They're not coaching a position. They're just leading the men into battle. You better be elite at that. And the stories I've heard from people with the Ravens with John Harbaugh, it's pretty special. Jim Harbaugh's resume speaks for itself. Dan Campbell took the Lions, the absolute laughingstock of the league. The team that when they played on Thanksgiving, it's like, why do we have to do this every year? To a team many people are going to pick this year to win the NFC. That's a remarkable accomplishment. If he just gets them back into the playoffs again, the Lions went to the playoffs back-to-back years. What if he wins the division again? The Lions won the division 2 straight years? How the hell is that possible? If I would have told you that 5 years ago, you would have laughed at me in the face. I don't think Dan Campbell gets enough credit. Jerod Mayo gave one of the great quotes I've ever heard. And a lot of people have talked about, coaches get asked about it all the time, about fighting in practice. I saw Belichick was on with McAfee and just said how pointless it is. Like, what a waste. How none of the coaching staffs, when you do these joint practices, want anyone to fight. Obviously, tensions flare, people get pissed, but it just slows everything down. And obviously, you can break a hand or something, and it could be a liability to your team. But Jerod Mayo said today, and I don't know if he got this from Bill or he made it up himself, but he says, I keep this pretty simple. I tell starters, if you fight, you will play the entire preseason game. I tell the backups, if you fight, you will not play a snap in the preseason game. What an incredible threat that he will back up. It ain't worth the risk. And given his team, he ain't worried about losing anybody. I don't know. It'd be one thing if like McVay or, Andy or some of these guys said that. Like, there'd be certain players you would not leave him out there the whole game. But on a team like this, he's not bullshitting. And I think anytime there is a threat and there is substance behind it and they are not bluffing, as you grow up, your parents, the buttons you can push with them. But then you get to a point where, if I push this button, he ain't lying here. This is going to be bad. So you stop pushing. And I just think that's one of the great ways to sum up your responsibilities to your team. Name me a starter who wants to play the entire preseason game. And name me a backup who is not only trying to make that team, but knows that's his resume for the rest of the league that would risk that. Awesome quote. I'm hard on the Patriots here, but that was good. Couple injury notes before we get out of here. I think it was scary a couple days ago. Malik Nabers was down for a minute, and a lot of people thought, what happened to him? Turns out he's going to be okay. I saw he said today, I'm 100% not missing week 1. Everything's going to be fine. We can all take a deep breath. I don't think there's a worse tweet, or if you see it on Instagram, like with Schefter, so-and-so is down and taken to the locker room. I saw that yesterday with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs was down and taken immediately to the locker room. And you're like, I don't even play fantasy. But I felt for all the people in fantasy that might have had him on their squad. I felt for all the Lions fans that have waited since Barry Sanders to have a team where they pumping out their chest. Like, that sucks. Turns out it's just a hamstring. That's always the best case scenario. It's like, well, going to miss a couple weeks, but everything's okay. And I've said it forever. There is nothing worse in training camp than in a practice when a guy goes down. Absolutely nothing. It sucks in a game, but at least it's a game, right? It happens every single play in a game. Anything can happen at any moment. In a practice, in a lot of these situations, I think Sam Williams with the Cowboys happened in a kickoff return drill. In a kickoff return drill. I just don't think it gets any worse. And I know these coaches and these GMs become numb to it. I haven't become numb to it just reading it on the internet. And I've been at enough practices post work in the league where the practice stops and the energy goes out. It sucks. So anytime a guy goes down and everyone's freaking out and it turns out, I just pulled his calf, everything's good. Because there's a fine line of just, hey, hamstring, we'll just give him a couple weeks off. Then like, yes, patella tendon ripped apart. We're not going to see him for a while. You can kiss this season goodbye. That sucks. So happy to both those guys who are two players that whether you play fantasy, whether you just love football, whether you root for one of those teams, we just want to watch. I just want to watch Malik Nabers and I want to watch Jahmyr Gibbs.